The stakes have never been higher. A dramatic showdown in the Oval Office between President Donald Trump and Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has left world leaders scrambling to mend fractured alliances and determine the future of the ongoing war. And now, just days later, a high-stakes Ukraine war summit is unfolding in London, where key global powers are coming together to navigate one of the most crucial moments in modern history. Welcome to Focal Point. Today we break down the shocking developments from the Oval Office confrontation, the tense diplomacy at Downing Street, and what this all means for Ukraine and the world moving forward. This is a pivotal moment in global politics, and the decisions made in the coming hours could shape the course of the war and international relations for years to come. According to BBC's political editor, Chris Mason, the gravity of this summit cannot be overstated. The fallout from that explosive meeting between Trump and Zelensky has sent shockwaves across the international stage. The burning questions now: can world leaders repair the trust between the U.S. and Ukraine? And if not, what is Plan B? How will this impact the ongoing military support for Ukraine? And more importantly, does this signal a potential shift in U.S. foreign policy regarding the war? In a series of critical discussions leading up to this summit, UK Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has been actively working to bridge the growing divide. Speaking with BBC's Laura Quensberg, Starmer acknowledged the visible tension between Trump and Zelensky, but emphasized that his primary goal is to find a diplomatic solution that ensures lasting peace. I spoke with President Trump. I spoke with President Zelensky. We then had President Zelensky at Downing Street yesterday. I also spoke with President Macron and later again with Trump, Starmer revealed. We've now agreed that the UK, along with France and possibly other nations, will work with Ukraine on a plan to stop the fighting before presenting it to the US. This marks a significant shift in the approach to the war in Ukraine, with European leaders taking the lead in brokering peace. But will the US administration back their proposal? And will Trump's strained relationship with Zelensky pose a roadblock? Could this lead to a reduction in US aid to Ukraine, forcing European nations to shoulder more of the burden? The dramatic Oval Office exchange still lingers over these negotiations. During their meeting, President Trump reportedly berated Zelensky, emphasizing that Ukraine should be more grateful for the support it has received from the U.S. The encounter was uncomfortable to watch, leaving many questioning Trump's commitment to Ukraine's fight for sovereignty. Even Starmer, known for his diplomatic approach, admitted that he was deeply unsettled by the exchange. "Yes, I felt uncomfortable," he stated. "Nobody wants to see that. But instead of focusing on outrage, I chose to act, to get on the phone, talk to Trump, talk to Zelensky, and push for a way forward. The bottom line is that after 3 years of war, we need lasting peace." But how realistic is peace at this stage? Reports from the battlefield indicate that Russian forces have intensified their attacks on key Ukrainian cities. The war continues to drain resources, claim lives, and destabilize global security. If a peace deal is to be struck, what conditions would be acceptable to Ukraine? Would Zelensky be forced to make concessions that Ukraine finds unacceptable? Meanwhile, the economic strain on European nations is growing. The cost of sustaining military aid, energy dependencies, and refugee support is taking its toll. If the U.S. decides to reduce its assistance, European leaders may have to make difficult choices about their level of involvement. Could this summit mark the beginning of a new European-led strategy for Ukraine? And what would that mean for NATO's role in the conflict? Conservative Party leader Keir Starmer also weighed in, expressing concerns over the lack of clarity surrounding the UK's involvement. When Starmer talked about potentially sending British troops to Ukraine, I asked, where is the funding coming from? What are the guarantees? "We cannot do this alone," she stated. "That said, we support this summit because it is a matter of national interest. Ukraine needs our help, but we also need to maintain our own security priorities." Badenoch also reflected on the Trump-Zelensky encounter, stating, "My heart went out to President Zelensky. He was humiliated in front of the world. These difficult conversations should not be happening in front of cameras." Zelensky represents the resilience of the Ukrainian people. Whatever differences exist, they should not be aired in a way that only benefits Vladimir Putin. As leaders convene at Lancaster House for this historic summit, all eyes are on the outcome. Attendees include the heads of state from Ukraine, France, Germany, Denmark, Italy, the Netherlands, Norway, Poland, Spain, Canada, Finland, Sweden, Czechia, and Romania. The Turkish Foreign Minister, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, and top EU officials will also be present. This level of international coordination signals the urgency of the situation. While military aid packages and financial support have been the primary means of assistance to Ukraine thus far, this summit may mark a shift towards direct diplomatic intervention. Are we seeing the beginning of an international push to bring Russia and Ukraine to the negotiating table? And if so, what would such negotiations look like? One of the biggest concerns among European leaders is whether the U.S. will maintain its commitment to Ukraine under Trump's leadership. With growing domestic pressure to focus on American economic and border security issues, Trump has hinted at reassessing the level of support the U.S. provides to Ukraine. Could this summit serve as a turning point where European nations take on a larger role in aiding Ukraine, both militarily and diplomatically? If European nations do take on a larger share of responsibility, how will this impact the balance of power? Could it accelerate efforts to form a more independent European defense alliance, reducing reliance on U.S. military support? And how would Russia react to a more unified European stance on Ukraine? The geopolitical consequences of this summit extend far beyond just military aid. They could reshape the future of Western alliances altogether. The question remains, will this summit produce real progress, or will global divisions deepen further? What happens next will shape the future of Ukraine and global security as a whole. Stay tuned as we continue to monitor the latest updates from London. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay informed on all the breaking developments. Let us know in the comments. Do you think this summit will lead to a lasting resolution, or are we heading for further geopolitical turmoil? Your thoughts matter.